I am Ariel Faree. Like Eric kind of mentioned, I do digital marketing with Inside Out Solutions, and I've been in the hospitality industry now for about 3 years. I've done 2 ALP conferences, they're under my belt, and as I was considering what to do for this conference, I started thinking about the past conferences, what I love about the industry, what I love about innkeepers and the hosts that I've met, and I landed on how much recipes seem to be so beloved and so important. So as I started formulating what to talk about, I realized a recipe was forming in my mind as well. So that's where the name A Recipe for a Cohesive Digital Marketing Plan comes from. So we're going to talk about how to bring together your different marketing ideas, the different marketing questions, the different marketing benchmarks, the things that you need to consider to be more cohesive with your online presence. That's kind of the roadmap of what we'll go through today. When you think of, say, your favorite recipe, what sticks out in your brain? Is it maybe that the recipe is well balanced? It leads you to a well balanced meal. Maybe the recipe took you on a journey. They began talking about, how they found the recipe when traveling, and it just, tugged at your heartstrings, and you had to find out, what does this recipe taste like from Bali or India or wherever the blogger was talking about. Maybe it's because the meal at the end is satisfying and you appreciate the differences in the flavors. But either way, there's something that brings the whole recipe together. There's a cohesive nature to it that makes you feel like this is one of your favorites. This is one that you can use again. Or maybe this is one that, your guests have loved and have got them to even come back to you. So when we think about a marketing plan, we want to think about it in the same way. We want to leave our viewers feeling fulfilled. We want to leave them feeling satisfied, and we want to lead to healthy building blocks for the future. So that's kind of what we're going towards today. During the travel and planning phases, when you consider what your potential guests are going through, during those phases, it's said that they need up to 7 to 8 touch points to convert to a booker. So those 7 to 8 touch points can be thought of as ingredients in your digital marketing plan. The things that create those touch points, those impressions that then lead to brand recognition, lead to a looker converting to a booker. So the different ingredients are what's really important, but how the ingredients come together is probably even more important. So I know you may be familiar with some of the things that we talk about, but how we bring it together is what we really want to get to at the end of this presentation. So let's think about 7 different touch points just off the top of our head. Those might be your website. Your online presence starts with the website. It might be an email blast. It might be social media. It could be a review. It could be maybe you worked with a local influencer. Maybe you got featured in an online magazine. So those 7 right there could be what converts a looker to a booker, but not on their own. So a good recipe, like a good marketing plan, has to bring all of that together. And I know when we think about recipes, or when we first start with a new recipe, there's often different techniques, there's different terms that we have to get used to. There's new words. Sometimes the words may seem like a foreign language even. Sometimes they are a foreign language. We're creating a flambe this, we're making a roux that, we're, they are different languages. So when you look at the ingredients for your cohesive digital marketing plan, you may have that similar type of intimidation, but just as with any great recipe, it takes some practice, it takes some passion, and then you'll be able to whip up those favorite ones just like you do in the kitchen that you're in. So that's what I'm going to try to get us through, going through some of those processes, getting more comfortable with some of the terms and the ideas for creating that cohesive marketing plan. So let's jump into some of those and what those mean and how you can use them in conjunction. So when we talk about cohesive marketing plan, we're referencing the need to bring them all together, referencing the need to bring different platforms together, different content together, Maybe there's different players. It might be you, the innkeeper, maybe it's a marketing firm, maybe it's an influencer. So there's a lot at play that you have to bring together. And understanding these terms are going to kind of help give you that roadmap as well. So when we think about a marketing plan, that sets out the specific digital marketing related goals in a focused and achievable way. It takes into consideration your overall marketing plan, what your business is doing well online, what can be learned from your online audience, that is golden, the engagement part, the responding to reviews, the reading comments. This can give you so much information and a strategic advantage in your marketing. So it's a very important part of the planning phase as well. You look at what you're lacking, you look at where you are to certain goals and benchmarks in the industry, and that's how you create the overall marketing plan. Underneath your plan, you then have different strategies. And the digital marketing strategies are a series of online campaigns that take you to the point where you hopefully achieve your goal, make some progress, or learn for a future campaign what you might need to do differently. You can have multiple strategies planned at once and at varying times of the financial year so that they play off of each other. Now, underneath your strategy is where you get your digital marketing campaigns. And this is probably a phrase that you hear a bit more often these days, and often these terms get interchangeable. But having an understanding of that hierarchy can help you understand the planning and create more cohesive plans. We often jump out at campaigns without having the strategy behind it, without having the planning behind it. And that's where you get a lot of misses, you get a lot of gaps, and that's not what we want. So after the marketing plan, you create your strategies, multiples. I would definitely say you would want to have more than one going at once. And then beneath each strategy, you also have to plan out your campaigns. And these are the actions, these are the tasks that you create to get you to your digital goal from the strategies. Campaigns work best in conjunction with other campaigns and across multiple different online channels. You don't want to undershoot yourself by saying, for instance, if you wanted to create a campaign to increase your leads, you may run that campaign mainly on Instagram, but it would be an undershot if you didn't also share that information in your email marketing, if you didn't also share that information on Facebook, on Twitter, if you didn't also have that info on your website. So this is where you create more of a cohesive, formulated plan as opposed to just shooting out an idea on a random off day because you had an inspiration. Those are great, but those are just the spark. So now that we've kind of got a little basics of those terms, let's kind of see what these ingredients are that can help to bring together your strategy, bring together your campaigns. These terms, some of these will be familiar, some of these may be intimidating when you've tried to look at them yourself, but they're all a part of what helps to bring it all together. And when we first think about your online marketing, branding has to be number one. I'm not going to go through in depth through all of these because yet again, we're talking about creating a cohesive marketing plan, and I can talk about each of these probably way too long. So branding, that's the first thing. You have to consider it these days. You have to know that you're working across multiple platforms, multiple channels. Someone isn't just finding you from a brochure and then going straight to your website. Nowadays, they're looking at the OTAs, they're looking at social media, they're looking at what your review platforms say. So you need to have that cohesive branding across all of them. And you may have got a new logo, so you need to make sure your new logo is across all platforms. If you have icons that are on your website, those are brand assets as well. Maybe you start to transfer those types of iconography across different platforms. You want to build brand recognition after all. Again, those touch points. So each of those touch points need to be backed by your brand. That leads to your website. Your website has to be brand right. It has to be mobile first. It's 2020. We all are going through COVID. We all understand the importance of having your e-commerce online as well as on your website these days. So I'm not going to go in depth into that, but it is a must. It must be mobile first. And having a booking engine on your website is a must. Although if you work with OTAs, that's fine. You have to have it on your website in 2020 going forward. Email marketing and segmented email marketing is even more important. If you want to stay in touch with your customers, if you want to build loyal followers, if you want to build repeat business, if you want to create more engaging and personal content, this is an opportunity to do it here as well, as opposed to just trying to throw so much onto your website where you can end up creating a clogged up website. Email marketing can be an opportunity to do that, do some of the things your natural inclination might be to share on your website, but you want to keep your website brand right, remember. So email marketing gives you that opportunity to connect a little more personally and more targeted with segmentation. Social media marketing. We've heard that one quite a bit nowadays. We're starting to understand how important it is for building engagement because, again, those 7 touch points. And if you consider being on multiple social media platforms, you could already have multiple touch points just from your social media platforms. So when we think about some of the most important ones, we know there's Facebook, we know there's Instagram. I'd also throw LinkedIn in there for this industry. It's very important when we consider business travelers, when we consider corporate workshops, when we consider wellness events or booking weddings on our property as well. We want to be on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. So those are more of the professional industry related ones that are necessary for innkeepers and each inn to be on. You want to have a representation. Yet again, it's those touch points. And if you look up some of your competitors, you may start to notice their Facebook shows up in search engines. Their LinkedIn shows up in search engines. It's an immediate touch point in search engines these days. So being on multiple platforms is important. And luckily, there are ways where you can cross-post so that cohesiveness is automatic. You don't have to, try to rethink how do I get the same post across here. That can be done through scheduling apps. IFTT helps you to cross-promote. But there's different ways to be on all the multiple platforms without taking up so much of your time of posting on all of them. Yet they're the touch points that we want and need. Content creation, this is huge. This is everything across all of your different ingredients. So whether that's your high-res photography, we need to have high quality photography going forward in the industry. When you think about how everything is online, your competitors, your potential guests have so many things thrown at them that they need to have the best of you at every single touch point. The best of you, whether it's paid for high quality photography or whether that's you, the innkeeper, or someone on your team taking a few photography courses online to learn how to get those angles, how to get the natural lighting, how to take pictures of those recipes. We love to share our recipes, but we have to share high quality recipes going forward because more and more people are searching online and having so much thrown at them at once. When you think about blogging, when you think about landing pages, again, that's your content creation. So as you're planning your marketing plan, as you're planning your campaigns, there are many different ingredients to consider and how they play with each other. So your branding has to be consistent, your messaging has to be consistent, but you want to be able to play across these different ingredients. Paid advertising, we know what that is. It is important. When you think about the other one listed, search engine optimization, those go hand in hand with your website, with paid advertising. That goes hand in hand with creating landing pages, blog posts. So you see how they all play together. It all creates a full rounded campaign instead of just saying, oh, I'm going to do a post on Instagram about a contest. It's not enough to build it to get the return on investment. You need to have a cohesive plan across multiple platforms. I throw influencer marketing in here because yet again, we are in 2020 and the way marketing is being influenced, the trend is still towards influencers. And we think about influencers often as, someone with 100 million followers on social media or a blog post who gets, 100 million impressions a day. But that doesn't have to be the only fish that you say, you know, you go after for your recipe. We, in our industry, we already are focused on very niche things. So creating niche relationships with smaller micro influencers is going to get you a better return on your money anyway. So don't even get intimidated by the idea of working with someone who's going to charge you too much. That's more or less not even the influencer that you would want to go after. And, you know, when you think about influencer marketing nowadays, be prepared for it. Don't just wait for someone to come to you. You know, with my clients, I've noticed that more and more people are reaching out wanting to, you know, oh, hey, I'm a blogger, I'll be in town, can we connect about how we can collab? That's all well and fine, but you're going to start getting more of those, and you need to understand how to fish out the right ones. So creating an influencer page on your website, it could even be a hidden page that you only send to people who, you know, want to collab with you. Create those requirements, have those set in advance, know what you're looking for, know what you need. Does the influencer need to have XYZ amount of followers? What do you want from them? Clearly define it ahead of time. So when you start to get these requests, you know how to respond. You don't have to think too much through it. Other ingredients that I think are very important going forward right now are creating local collabs. I mean, this is a digital marketing side, so we want to consider, how do you do that online? How do you collab online with your local partners nowadays, since things aren't as open to be in person? But it is imperative because they have following and you have a following. You bring them together, cross promote, and increase following. So it has always been important, but going forward now, as people are looking for those more concierge requests, they want more concierge services because they can't be in person with the places that they thought they were going to. So you creating those connections for them is very important, and how you relay that online, how you share those packages will make the difference. Relationship management, we know that's a key ingredient. Responding to reviews, asking for reviews, asking for how you want the reviews. Maybe you want to ask your followers to share a photo and what they loved best about their summer. Maybe you ask them to share a photo on what was their favorite recipe. And that's a review in itself. It's user-generated content, because when people search for you, they could find that tag. That is a review. It's not the typical way you think of a review, but it is. And that's how people are searching these days. Customer service in person has to mirror what you're messaging online. It is not okay for someone to call and to call you and ask about, say, your package about going horseback riding, and that person has no idea about the info, but it's on your website. So making sure that what you're sharing digitally is cohesive with what's in person is a must. Retarget marketing. This one may be familiar or not. It sounds a little more scarier than it has to be, but it can be done easily through different ad platforms, through email marketing. And this is recapturing the people who were once interested in you, who once visited your website, or the ones who booked and canceled due to COVID. So understanding that recapture is retarget marketing, and it is very important going forward. So these are different ingredients that I consider when I'm looking at creating a marketing plan or a marketing campaign. It's a lot at once, but when you start to understand how they all interplay, it comes more easily. Just like when, you have to make your favorite omelet, you now know exactly what you need to put in it because you've done it multiple times. So it will get easier as you get more familiar with the terms and understanding how to put it together, or how to work with your marketing team more efficiently too. So we've got some ingredients down. We've got a little bit of the overview of what it takes to begin a marketing plan, but how do we do it? So that's what we're going to go into a little bit now. We want to understand how to create the marketing plan, how to set these goals. And when I'm doing that, I like to consider the SMART goal setting mnemonic. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not, but SMART stands for use specific wording, that's the S, include measurable goals, aim for realistically attainable goals, pick relevant goals that relate to your business, and make goals time bound. Often I'm approached by clients or communicate with my clients, and there's a great idea, there's a spark, and we want to jump on it, and that's great, but we haven't done this work yet. We haven't set the planning, we haven't done the goals, we haven't looked into what it actually takes to create the campaign, and that can create time crunches, that can create miscommunications and messaging because you didn't do this work in advance. So this part of making your digital plan and your digital strategy and your digital campaign is always important. Whenever you're considering starting a new campaign or setting a new goal, consider using this mnemonic. For me, it's been very helpful. And we're going to go through some different examples. Hopefully that's the plan, to go through some examples to get more of a better understanding of how it all interplays. But this for me has been very helpful, and it helps you to weed out, it helps you to filter the things that may or may not work. So considering using it. And when you see specific wording, it's not enough to say, we're going to run an Instagram contest. You need to be very specific about it. What is the contest? Set that information from the get-go so that later when you look at it again, you're not getting confused. Well, what did we say? Who said this? Specific wording is very important from the beginning of your planning, because you don't want to get confused or create multiple campaigns that end up doing similar things, especially if you work with multiple marketing partners. So that one is a big step. Include measurable goals. It's not enough to say that I want to increase my lead numbers, I want to increase the email addresses I capture. You need to set more of a specific goal. If the last 3 months you increased it by 2%, maybe your next 3-month goal is to increase by 5%. And you want to create realistically attainable goals. So you don't want to just shoot a number out there. You want to maybe look through your past email marketing reports and say, okay, I've seen this amount of growth. What is realistic and how can I get there? It's great to say maybe the industry benchmark of bounce rate is 1.8% and you're at 3.2. It's great to say I want to be at 1.8 next month for my next campaign, but is that realistic considering what you've been doing in your past? You've got to be more, so that way you give yourself not only something that's achievable, but when you get there, there's less of disappointment. There's more of a growth pattern as opposed to a letdown because you didn't really plan out your goals properly. Pick relevant goals to your business. Sometimes I run into situations where it's a very aspirational goal, and it's great to have aspirational goals, but is that something that you might be able to achieve in this next year? Or is that something, you're setting for 3 years out instead of saying, hey, I want to get to that this year? Not to say aspirational goals aren't great, but you have to give yourself that room to grow, give yourself that room to understand the industry instead of just saying, this is what I want. Of course, what we want is important, but getting to the steps to get there creates more incremental goals. Make goals time bound. This, I think, is the most important one that I run into working with clients, not creating a time frame for it or not allowing enough time frame for the planning and content creation phase. So making sure that each campaign you have, you're going through this SMART mnemonic, you're creating that time frame, and you're doing it well in advance. If you're saying, a tip from, I like to think about it this way, your marketing plan should be set 6 to 12 months already in advance. So if you're just jumping on board, you have to, with say a new company or you're creating a new plan yourself, your goals need to reflect that time frame. It can't be immediate time frames because that's just not how return on investments typically work. Paid advertisement, you might have a quicker return on investment, but with many of these other ones, it's creating a well laid out plan and you need consistent time frames for that. So make your goals time bound, include deadlines if you're working with other people to create the content, and then from the deadlines, then you create your publish date. You create when you actually launch and how long the campaign will run for. It has to have that separation, because otherwise you don't have enough time to assess. You don't have enough time to see if this actually was useful for you. So creating that time-bound, the time-bound aspects to your goals is very, very key, and then being able to follow those. The SMART mnemonic, you'll get these slides, but this one is very important for creating goals going forward. We love the ideas, we love the sparks, but how do we get those sparks to actually work for our business? Is where we need to create these plans, and that's where the SMART mnemonic begins. When we think, though, of creating these goals, how do we get the goals? How do we get the information to know what is an attainable goal, what's a relevant goal? So that's where we look at different types of ways of assessing. So benchmarking is one of the ways that we use in marketing and in business to kind of give us an idea of what is a relevant, what is an attainable goal. Benchmarking is the process of measuring a business's performance against competitors, industry standards, and or previous marketing results, which is why it's key to have that time bound so you can continue to measure. Companies benchmark to analyze their success and get a better understanding of how they're performing relative to their competition and marketing goals. So there are certain benchmarks in the industry that you can, Google and kind of find out. There's different benchmarks for email marketing by industry. There's different benchmarks for social media engagement by industry. You can benchmark based on aspirational organizations you might want to be a part of, such as a select registry or a regional association. Those places can often provide certain benchmarks as well when you look at who's in the organization, what do they require to join the organization. And then you want to know what your key performance indicators are. So some of the key performance indicators in our industry are your average daily rate, your occupancy rate, your revenue per room, your online reviews. So understanding what your key performance indicators are is very important for when you're setting these goals. It's very important for helping you to decide on your goals and even decide on campaigns. So yet again, the planning phase is very important, not just having the fun idea. So when we want to actually attempt creating a plan or creating a campaign, we often start with the spark. We start with the why you're creating the campaign. Maybe you think to yourself, oh, I want to create a contest, or, oh, I have all of these review recipes. What am I going to do with these recipes? Oh, maybe I'll create a book and use it as a giveaway. Great ideas. These are the beginning. These are the spark. So we're going to run through a few examples of how to create your goals, how to use the SMART mnemonic, how to create a plan for an example campaign. And when I do that, I look at it kind of like this. Why are we creating the campaign? What are we going to title the campaign? What content is needed? Who's doing the content? Is it going to be purchased? Is it going to be paid out? Is it going to be outsourced? Is it someone on your property? Are you going to be doing it? What's the time frame for it? Measurable goals. We set the goal for each campaign, and what channels are you going to be using to promote it? And then we set those time frames and keep it solidified. So if you guys are open to it, I would like us to try to run through an example or two of how we, create a campaign together. And while we're doing it, we're just going to go through, say, an example like this one. You can, I don't know if you have a pen and paper, or if you're being digital and very savvy, you can do it on your laptop. But let's consider a few campaigns together. If you want to use the chat bot, we can use the chat bot. Otherwise, we'll kind of just talk through it together. me talking mostly. But so let's say after you've done some analysis, you did some benchmarking, you went through some of your reports, and you discovered a gap in midweek reservations during the last 2 summers. You were looking at your past bookings. So when you see that as an opportunity. So that's just the spark. When we go from the spark, we then need to figure out all these other steps, what we're going to title it, how we're going to use it, what our goals are going to be, what channels we're going to use. So let me see if I can, where's the chat bot? Are we having anybody chatting yet? What do we think a good campaign title should be? Hello. What do we think a good campaign title should be for this idea? This is your spark. What would be a good campaign title? Let's see what's in chat. Alaska, land of the last frontier. Stay safe with us. Yes, I can switch to that mode. Here you go, guys. Okay, so Alaska, the last frontier. That seems a little bit vague. Remember, we need to be very specific when we're thinking about these things. So what's our goal here? Well, not our goal, our idea and our gap in what we want our goal to be, of course, is to have full midweek, occupancy. So we need a more specific title. We got to be very specific from the onset so that we continue it that way. Now, how do I get to this chat? Close the midweek gap, midweek stay and save. I like these, I like those. Those are a lot more specific. So let's maybe go with midweek stay and save. Summer fun abounds, still abounds. That could work too. Alaska Adventure Cabins open year round from Freedom. A little still vague, Brian, because yet again, we're trying to focus on midweek or summer midweek. We need to be more specific than that one. But I like the midweek stay and save, close the midweek gap. That already gets you thinking more so on the terms of what we need to focus on. How do I get out of the chat now, guys? I can't get in and out of chat unless I'm on the editor, I think, guys. Sorry. So midweek stay and save. So if we go with that title, what content do you think is most imperative, most important for a midweek stay and save campaign? We're trying to increase repeat bookings. Oh wait, we're on the wrong one. Woo, no, we skipped. Sorry about that, guys. So midweek stay and save. All right, here we go. So we're trying to increase midweek reservations during the last 2 summers. So going forward, we want to make sure that we're capturing midweek reservations. What content do you think is needed for that? Share some ideas. Description of special savings, special offers, special packages, activities available, great ideas. So the content then would be creating, remember this is content specific, so those are a little less specific. So creating a offer landing page, that's a bit more specific, that we then share via paid advertising. Maybe we share this landing page on our social media platforms. Maybe we share the landing page via email marketing. So remember, we're talking about being cohesive. So what all do we need for the content to then cross across the different platforms? So an offer, a landing page, what might we need for that? Maybe we would need certain branded graphics. Maybe we would need some high-res photography. So we're talking about midweek summer stays. What's important to guests midweek? High-res photography of business center, of desks in rooms, if people are working midweek, or maybe there's a special package that is only offered midweek at a local winery or at a local yoga studio, something that is very specific to midweek. This is what we're going to need. So if it's, creating a package for that midweek yoga sessions or for that midweek winery tour, we need very specific content for it. So let's see, what do we think would be the goal? And remember, this needs to be very specific, very measurable, attainable, and relevant. So what would be a good goal to set for a campaign like this? What do we think would be a good goal? And, feel free, where do you think you would get that goal from? Because that is very important too. We went to our booking engine to find out that we had this gap. Book 25 rooms, increase booking by XXX. So I like increased bookings by XXX, and we find XXX by benchmarking either on previous offers that we've done, either by industry standards, what is the average midweek occupancy rate in your area. Maybe that's how you get that XX percentage amount. Maybe it's straight from your booking engine and you could tell that, versus summer versus winter, what your midweek was, and you can benchmark that way as well. So we want to just know where we're benchmarking and why it's relevant to our business, and then create a specific goal. Let's say increase by XX% based off of industry midweek benchmark. And then where do we think it's most important to share an offer like this? Would we exclude any promotional channels? Would we prioritize any promotional channels? If it is, let's say you recognize this in spring. Maybe it's already spring when you recognize that you had this gap the previous summers. So that would be a more immediate prioritization. So maybe then you would increase maybe your paid advertising amount towards it. Maybe you realize this a whole summer in advance, so you have all year to make sure you're promoting midweek reservations. So maybe you don't prioritize as much paid advertising, but maybe you use your email marketing, your social media marketing to make sure that people are realizing you have this great midweek offer, that they get 7 touch points throughout the year, as opposed to trying to crunch those 7 touch points for midweek reservations into a shorter time frame. Hence why it's much better to have that planning far out and realize these gaps far out. But it doesn't always work that way. And hence where we get a bit more of flexibility in how we work with our marketing. And that's where we see paid advertising coming in for more last minute things, boosting on Facebook, or maybe working with an influencer who can get you that, that quick punch of more exposure. An online magazine gets you a bit more of a quick punch of exposure. but understanding where we are in the time frame of our campaign and of our goal helps us then to prioritize what promotional channels we need to use. So let's say we did 12-month planning and we include monthly social posts and in monthly email blasts going forward. So that way we span out our time frame of knowing how many touch points we might get to each person. And then how long do we want to run, say, if we're doing an offer and what that specific offer is, how long would we want to run the offer? You want to be very specific about when you're going to have your content done and then how long you're going to run that offer for. So typically a good time frame for running an offer to see some return on investment, if you say aren't doing paid digital advertisement, you decide whether it's going to be a shorter time frame or a longer time frame, and that kind of adjusts your budget for you. And since we're doing this one, we put it kind of up there. We did 12-month planning. So we're going to run this one throughout the year because we found it technically in our scenario the year before. If we found it last minute, the spring before the summer, then our time frame would be different, and how we work with our promotional channels and our budget would also be different. This is getting a little confusing. There you go. Okay, let's see. We don't have so much time left. We can run through another example, or we can see if there's any specific questions you guys have for me. What do you guys think? Do we want to do another example? I've got another one ready. Who's chatting? 10 minutes. So let's do questions and answers. Does anybody have any questions and answers? If they want their question and answer to be a sample campaign, we can do that too. Let me know if you got any questions, but I'm going to, let's see what we got. Well, Brian, I will get back to you specifically. I will get back to you specifically on that one. And I know if you go to our virtual booth, if the booth is available, you can also see our digital marketing plan listed there, but otherwise we can chat also. Don't worry, we'll chat separately. We got you. Okay, so again, cohesive marketing plans. I know I'm running out of time. We just want to make sure as you consider creating your campaigns, your marketing plans, you see how they play with different aspects. It starts with a spark, just as your favorite recipe might start with, hey, I love avocados, hey, I love omelets, but it doesn't end there. There's many different things that come into play. You want to make sure with your marketing plan, you consider how everything goes into play and builds up that nice fluffy omelet of a marketing plan. I am at ariel@insideout.com. We do have a booth and we will be available, but ariel@insideout.com if you have any other questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ariel, and thank you, Inside Out Solutions, for giving you the time off to to share your knowledge with us. We much appreciate it. Ariel's slideshow will be available when we put the ebook together, which should be available within the next day or so. The main thing is waiting on Zoom to compile and send out the recordings to me so I can break them apart and put them into the ebook. So everything will be available. And yes, the virtual marketplace will be available. I believe Inside Out has a spot on there for a free quote, if I'm not mistaken, or an evaluation of the website. So stop by their booth space and be sure to click on their back banner. There is a space for an evaluation of your website. again, any other questions for Ariel before we let her go and look to set up our final presentation of the day? Going once, going twice? Okay. Ariel, again, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. And we will look forward to seeing you working with ALP in the future.
Thank you. All the best for the next presenter.
All righty.